Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Start McClear. I'm Sean. And today we are starting a new series. Today we are doing a series of vintage drivers. And today we are going to start out with one of the nicest drivers in the NASCAR community, and that is Ned Jarrett. We're going to talk about how he got into NASCAR, talk about his cars that he built, talk about what his history in the sport, talk about his wins and his championships, and stuff that he did later in his career, and all that good stuff. So, while we get started, Ned Jarrett was born on October 12, 1932 in Conover, North Carolina, to Eline and Homer Jarrett. Ned Jarrett's first experience with driving was when he was 9 years old, around 1941-1942, where his dad let him drive the family car to church on Sunday mornings. Ned Jarrett's very first job was working in a sawmill with his father, and started working at that job when he was 12 years old. However, he became very interested in racing, and by the time he was in his later years, when he was 13 or 14, his father took him to some dirt tracks some local dirt tracks in North Carolina. For the rest of his childhood until graduating high school in 1951, Ned Jarrett traveled with his father to local dirt tracks in North Carolina. And then in 1951, for the first time, they went to the track where he started his career at Hickory Motor Speedway. In 1951, he played a poker game and won half interest in a car. And then by the next year, in 1952, Ned Jarrett started his career at that same track in the Sportsman division. In his first race, he drove a Ford that he co-owned with his brother-in-law, and he finished 10th in that race. However, there was a conflict with his father. His father told him that he could work on the cars, but he could not drive them. And then one time, his brother-in-law was sick for a race, and he asked Ned Jarrett to fill in for him. And he used his brother-in-law's name and came second in that race. The good news is this worked out smoothly, that Ned Jarrett drove in a few more races under an assured name. However, he was caught by his father after winning a race. His father told him if he was going to drive, at least use his own name. After this incident, Ned Jarrett made his official NASCAR Cup debut in the 29th race of 1953 at Hickory Motor Speedway, driving Melly Bernard's 1950 Ford. There were 12 cars in the field, and Ned Jarrett had finished 11th. And that day, he only earned $25. However, Ned Jarrett made his first real official start at the 1953 Southern 500 at Darlington Raceway. Ned Jarrett drove his very own 1950 Oldsmobile, and there were 59 cars in the field, but unfortunately, he had an oil line problem on lap 8, and he finished dead last, earning only $100. In 1954, he drove for 2 races for once again, Melly Bernard. In his first race, he drove for the 19th race of the season. However, he drove in a 1953 Studebaker, and he was able to finish the race and earn $25. However, the next race that he entered, which was later in October at North Wilkesboro, Ned Jarrett finished 21st and driving another car, a 1953 Oldsmobile, but unfortunately he earned $0 during that race, as he was in one of the positions where they didn't pay anything. So let's go on to his next year, 1955. In 1955, Ned Jarrett made 3 starts throughout the course of the year. His first start being at the 1955 Southern 500. And out of a 69-car field, Ned Jarrett finished 37th with Melly Bernard's brand new 1955 Pontiac, and earned the biggest paycheck at this point of his career, which was $260. He made his second start in the 38th race of 1955, and this will also be his last start driving for Melly Bernard, once again in the same car, Unfortunately, out of a 36-car field, Ned Jarrett finished 33rd after having a rear end failure, and unfortunately, he did not get any money. He made his last start at North Wilkesboro in October 23rd, and this would also be the next start where he drove for himself. And in this race, out of a 28-car field, Ned Jarrett finished 22nd, driving his 1955 Buick. Unfortunately, had a fuel pump issue, and like the last race, Ned Jarrett did not get any money in the event. In 1956, Ned Jarrett went back down to the Sportsman division. However, he did make 2 starts in the season, and they were the first 2 races of the season. Once again, driving his own Buick. He at the first start of Hickory, he had a rear end failure and finished 21st. Unfortunately, did not earn any money. And then he made his second and final start of the year at Charlotte, where he came home 12th and was able to get $60 in the event. In 1957 and 1958, Ned Jarrett continued to drive for the Sportsman division, and Ned Jarrett did not drive for any Cup races in 1958. However, he did drive for one event at Concord, North Carolina in early 1957, where he finished 19th out of a 20-car field after having an engine failure on lap 7 driving his new Ford. And he earned $50 during the event. However, also during 57 and 58, he won championships in that series in both of those years. In 1959, Ned Jarrett went back to the Grand National Cup Series, and he purchased Junior Johnson's 1957 Ford for $2,000. However, Ned Jarrett did not have enough money to cover the check, so he waited until the bank closed to write the check and entered 2 races and won them both. And the car he was driving that won those 2 races was his own 1957 Ford. Chevy. Ned Jarrett got his first top 5 of his career and his first top 10 at Columbia, and he also got his first top 10 at Hickory that same year. But he did not get his first win until later in the year at Myrtle Beach. He also won the very next race in this season at Charlotte. Throughout the course of 1959, Ned Jarrett entered 17 races, had 2 wins, 4 top 5s, 7 top 10s, led 194 laps, and earned $3,860 throughout the year. Ned Jarrett went full-time in the Cup Series in 1960, and driving still for himself his brand new 1960 Ford. And by the 4th race of the year, Ned Jarrett finally got his very first sponsor for Owl Ridge Motor Company. He also got a later sponsor at Charlotte for Courtsey. And throughout the course of the year, Ned Jarrett drove for 40 of the 44 races, and he had 5 wins, 20 top 5s, and 26 top 10s with 5 poles. And also in the year, he earned over $25,000 in winnings, and he had an average finish of 9.9 and finished 5th in the final standings. 1961 was a better year for Ned Jarrett, as instead of driving for himself, he would drive for B.G. Holloway, driving his 1960 Ford and driving his 1961 Chevy. Throughout the 61 season, Ned Jarrett only won 1 race. However, throughout the season, he competed in 46 of the 52 events, had 23 top 5s and 34 top 10s. And then at the end of the season, he was able to get his first Grand National Championship, earning over $41,000 throughout the entire year. So let's go on to 1962. By also 1961, Ned Jarrett earned the nickname Gentleman Ned Jarrett after demonstrated by the decision to sell his 1961 Chevy to Wendell Scott, who was the first African-American driver in NASCAR.